Hello, everybody. My name is Tron Black, and I am currently the president of the Ravencoin Foundation. Ravencoin itself is not a company. It's an open source project. So everybody participates by basically running the Ravencoin software. But I'm here to, the Ravencoin Foundation is here to support the Ravencoin ecosystem, to monitor kind of all the things that are going on. And so I'm here to basically talk about tokenizing real estate. Some of this will be an overlap with the last presentation, but that's partly because they're not coordinated. And it's actually, for me, it's very exciting to see what DigiShares is doing. This is actually part of the entire puzzle piece, or the entire piece of the entire puzzle that we've been trying to kind of see Ravencoin be participating in as a tokenization platform. So Ravencoin in general, you can tokenize anything. Specifically, we're here to talk about tokenizing real estate, but it is capable of tokenizing tickets and game items, and gold and certificates of authenticity, and stable coins and art and wine. This presentation also may seem very, very simplistic compared to the last one, which basically covered lots of elements in more depth than I'll cover, specifically restricted assets. And I'm happy to answer all kinds of questions after this and go much, much deeper. But this one is sort of we'll call it a superficial overview, and might have been better positioned one step in time above the previous presentation, just because of sort of an overview of tokenization of real estate. Basically, tokenization of real estate is taking real estate, could be houses, building, etc., and chopping it up into small pieces and then issuing tokens that represent a share of that real estate. I'll show you actually how to do that here. That's also a duplication of what DigiShares is capable of, but it sounds like the two can integrate really well, meaning the issuer. It sounds like from the last presentation, you could issue real estate on the blockchain and then link that to DigiShares. So I will show how that happens. So in this case, so this is actually the software that's kind of built into Ravencoin, meaning it's free, it's open source. You download it, you sync the chain, and then you can do this. Now, in this particular case, I'm going to recommend that you actually, if you're tokenizing real estate, you talk to DigiShares first, because there are some legal stuff. I chose not to get into that for my presentation, because Andrew Bull will be following me, and he can talk about kind of all the legal things that you need to worry about. Also, it sounds like specifically for DigiShares it's best to choose a restricted asset type instead of main asset. And I have main asset here, but we can talk about that in the questions and answers. But basically, you just hit, it's fairly simple. You hit create asset. And here you would probably choose restricted asset, which previous presenter talked about it being a little bit more expensive. And the difference between the two, main asset doesn't have restrictions. So main asset, anyone can own it. If you want to transfer it to another address, any Ravencoin address, in fact, one that just gets created, right away, it's just basically a big random number, then main assets will work and transfer to those. Restricted assets, on the other hand, need to be tagged to allow that transfer. And that may be an issue for some jurisdictions for some real estate purchases. But basically, this is the interface. You choose the asset type. You have to have 500 Raven, or in the case of restricted asset, you need to have 1500 Raven. You choose the name of the asset. In this case, this would likely be something related to the real estate itself. You check to make sure that that's available. One of the advantages of Ravencoin is the asset name must be unique. So it's almost like a DNS registry for like registering a domain name. It's going to check the network and make sure that the name that you've chosen is guaranteed unique. One of the advantages here is that fewer people can be spoofed or tricked into buying something that isn't the real thing. Whereas on some of the other platforms, you can have identical names. And so the unique part of it is just this big random part, but the name can be duplicated by others, and that can sometimes be used for scams and hacking, or rather scams and really tricking people. You would choose basically how many of the asset. In this case, I've chosen 100,000. This is how many pieces or shares of the specific real estate that you're chopping it into. If you want it divisible, meaning like you can choose 100th of a share, you can do that. If you don't want that, then it needs to be guaranteed, or that it's non-divisible, meaning at least whole shares, which is true for some types of shares, but not necessarily others. The stock exchanges have now gone to decimal places, for example. Reissuable. This just means you can make more shares in the future, meaning the issuer, person that's issued it. And then the IPFS, and this was alluded to by the previous presenter, but basically you can put the title, the deed, the promise, basically what do the shares represent. And you can link this in here, and then the token name, in this case, my new asset, is then linked to the actual information about the property or the shares. And it's kind of guaranteed and immutable, or at least even if you change it, that each promise is recorded in a chain or a series, so that you can see what was promised before. Then you hit create asset, and that's it. You've tokenized the real estate. Now, one thing that I wanted to talk about that makes Ravencoin somewhat unique is it has some built-in capabilities and features. Now these may not be used yet, but I at least wanted to address them here. One of the possibilities is for the payment rails for tokenization can be the network as well. And this, we'll let Andrew talk to how what would need to be done for this. But basically, real estate tends to be profit producing, revenue producing at least. So let's say you had a house versus a house, apartment, an office building, something like that. It's typically getting rents. So people are paying to use that asset. And so it spins off cash, dollars, yen, euros, etc. And so the ability to get that cash to the token holders is possible with Ravencoin. So the ability to basically turn those dollars, yens, euros into Raven, and then transfer it pro rata to the token holders. Now this is built in, this feature at least is built into the network in the sense that you can say, I have this much Raven and I want it transferred pro rata, or by the ratio of shares to the token holders. And this can automatically happen. It's basically two lines. One line that locks in. It's almost like a stock distribution or a stock split type thing, where it basically locks it in on one block, and then an hour goes by to make sure that no changes to that can take place, and then it basically does the transfer. And it also creates a table of ownership locked in at a specific point in time. And so you can review that and make sure that it's kind of everything looks good. And then you just hit send, and it can automatically send. That has a capability of Ravencoin. So that's it. And I'm happy to take questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That was a very quick presentation. Let's take a look at the questions. First up is, let's see, Nitin Vik. She says, this is cool, trying to get some sense of platform usage. What's the market cap of total assets that has been tokenized on DigiShares / Ravencoin?
I can't speak to DigiShares. And in fact, it's difficult to speak to Ravencoin as well, since it is an open source platform. Meaning, while we were speaking, somebody could have tokenized a vault full of gold, and I wouldn't know about it. Yeah. So it's very hard to. Ravencoin isn't a company; it's a platform, and so if someone creates tokens that represent some real world asset, it just happens, and so there's no real way. I mean, there's 30,000 plus different assets that have been tokenized on Ravencoin, so it's difficult to speak to actually what the real world value of those. Some of those may be gold in vaults, and some of them may be gift cards or something like that, for other smaller restaurants and things like that.
All right. And then we have one from anonymous attendee. It says, does the price to tokenize an asset go up as the price of Ravencoin goes up?
It does. So right now, very inexpensive. Now, it wasn't brought up in the previous DigiShares presentation, but one possibility for somebody who's tokenizing assets is you can create a main asset and then create sub assets under that, and that's less expensive. It also makes sure that, let's say you were, we digitize realestate.com or something like that. You create a token for your company, and then you can create sub assets under that. And sub assets are quite a bit cheaper, in fact, a fifth as much, to be able to create those tokens for others. But they also have the same power to kind of transfer full ownership to someone else, meaning to the issuer, that's actually tokenizing the real estate. They become kind of root assets on their own, but they can only be initially created by the root owner. That can be used a lot of times to build trust in that original issuer token, as a tokenization platform, and then you use those sub assets that are cheaper.
Right. And does your company help with the legal/law side of tokenization of assets in different countries?
I'm going to leave that to DigiShares.
Yeah.
Speaking for Ravencoin Foundation, no. So Ravencoin Foundation specifically is there to monitor the ecosystem, and then also to be there to, like, if someone comes to me now, I would recommend tokenizing on DigiShares because this platform exists and legal frameworks and information. So I'm going to leave that question to DigiShares, but definitely the Ravencoin Foundation would basically be able to point people in the right direction now.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah, there's some few more here from, okay, here's one for you. What does it take to possibly create your own currency like a Ravencoin?
Oh, like your own blockchain. So I'll answer that in two parts. I don't know how closely this relates to DigiShares specifically, but you can create your own token using that same platform that I did already, right? And so then you would have a token and you would own all of those tokens. So if you just issue tokens and created them, they all belong to you. As far as like making your own entire platform, you can do that by copying the code, but it goes much deeper than that, because the importance and the security and everything is all related to how many miners, the community, and things like that. So Ravencoin has built an amazing community, has lots of miners, and that helps secure the network. And so because there's a lot of value on Ravencoin, there's lots of mining, lots of security, and so it's probably best not to try to create your own from scratch, but it is possible because this code's open source. But you'll be one of 100,000 or something, or 5,000.
There are a lot now. Are you still there, Tron?
I am here. Yes. Can you hear me?
Great. Okay, you froze for a second.
Oh no.
We have another one from Brandon, and he says, is there a cost to tokenize through Ravencoin or just transaction fees?
Okay, there is a cost to create your own set of tokens. That ranges from, if you're creating an NFT, it's 5 Raven. If you're creating a main asset, it's 500 Raven, which is about, we'll call it $50–60. To create a restricted asset right now would be about, we'll call it $150 to create your own restricted asset. So there is a cost to create them. And then the transfer fees right now are very low, meaning sub penny to do the transfers. And that will depend a little bit on the network load, but we've never had anything go above that. I mean, it's well under a penny, whereas Ethereum has gone up, I don't know, sometimes, $20, $30, $40, $50. It can get quite expensive when Ethereum's under load.